I think it's absolutely wild how this goes from nothing to a show like this. This one is for the more nerdy among us. This is definitely one of those deeper conversations.
Looks pretty good. The gain looks pretty good. I think we're good, yeah. So what's the bottom circuit?
7, 6, 3. It's one thing to go to a concert and stand behind a front of house engineer and see how things work. But what you're missing is everything that happened that morning and the setup that makes everything actually function the way it should function. And typically, my experience in the studio, I get way better results if I know that drum set back there is properly maintained and tuned. And kind of that same way, there's a whole lot of thought process that goes into the system itself that we never see, we never think about.
Red mic, circuit 4 is at 0.
That should probably go to a +2. So we're just looking at the frequency response of the throw EQ that the manufacturer puts in. So there's a shelf at 6.3 QO4 that we're trying to get things to kind of trend the same. So as you get closer to it, there's less air absorbing the high frequency, so it's going to be brighter. It looks like I call it like the clown shoe. Frequency will come down, then it'll have a boost on the HF. Trying to tame all that stuff down, so they all kind of look the same. But as you get further back, the air absorbs all the high frequency, so you go from a cut to a boost to counteract that stuff. So that's what we're trying to do right now.
We actually see that in the studio as well. Mic placement matters and how frequencies are picked up on different instruments. If you back up, you're gonna get less attack. Air acts as a compressor. It's gonna affect those waves that are shorter more readily. We don't see it that egregious in the studio because we're not dealing with distances like we are at this venue. But it makes a whole lot of sense and different ways to think about, okay, who's hearing what in this venue? And that informs the way he's going to set up the PA, which then informs the way he's going to mix that.
It's the same as the previous circuit?
Got a 2 all the way up and I think a 3 up top.
The full range box, the main PA, the subs timed in, leveled, all that stuff. So that part's done. Now we got to do front fills, down fills, working the sides, do the shading on the sides, working the timing there, and then do the delays. So it's zone by zone, you got to be methodic. Otherwise you go, did we do the... If you don't have a routine, then you kind of get out of it, especially when you're half asleep. Yep, so that first bit that we were talking about was doing the shading on the main PA for the air absorption. Then it was looking at the main PA itself, average frequency response through 5 microphones that are laid out all on axis. Finding hot spots, which could be coming off the room or something else. And then timing the ground subs to the air subs. They have to be moved. They're pretty close in time. We had to add another millisecond to them. And we have it down pretty well that if they're up against a concrete stage, we pull the ground subs down 3 dB level because you have that boundary effect. If it's open air, we go back up to 0. Then they match. And it's just half of the arc with half of the flown subs, only from one side. Time those together, time the main PA back together. So those 3 zones are now in time.
You don't want to blow out any one individual because the person in the back needs to hear it perfectly. Well, what if we just separate individual pieces of this system, take into account our environmental factors, our structural factors, and then we can change how that system works where we need it to.
I know. We're making sure we're 3 dB hotter than what that was. Yeah, we're good there. Okay.
Time to, yeah. There's no time to talk about.
No time that we can do with. We're already 3 milliseconds behind.
Now it's time to say thanks to today's sponsor, me. Thank you guys for watching these videos. If you want to support the channel, go to my website, pick up some drum samples. I have a whole host of them down there for different genres that'll suit your needs. Go check them out. Great way to support the channel. Thanks, guys. Back to the video.
So now we're going to work on the side hangs, the auxiliary or outfills, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the shading on them. We're going to time them, since we push the main PA back, I think 3 or 4 milliseconds. I have to look where they overlap. I just call it convergence, wherever the high frequency converges. At that point, you find where that auxiliary hang needs to sit. So when you walk through, the timing is correct and also the level is correct. Typically, we're pretty consistent, although today we're 2 boxes shorter on the main PA. So we're gonna have to pull the side hang down a little bit more than 3 dB. Because you have, on the edges of the coverage, you have a 3 dB down response. So main PA starts to get off 3 dB, that's when the other PA starts to come in. So that's down 3 dB. So technically it sums right there. So you're at kind of 0 and it kind of fades off the side. You don't want more energy on the outside than you're put forward. You're just energizing places where people aren't.
I understand some. Honestly, the viewers understand it more than I do.
At this point, he asked me if I could take a quiz, and honestly, no. Like, a lot of this stuff is completely foreign to me, but what I can tell you, as he was talking about shading from the sides, and there was a lot of different places where there could have been noticeable differences in sound, but at a few points in the show, we walk in front of the PA, all the way from the side to the front of house position and back. I didn't notice any difference. Now that I go back and I see this and what he said, and remember that experience, it was very true. That preparation, I would have noticed a hot spot walking from that auxiliary hang into the main PA, and I didn't. It was a super smooth transition. So these principles do actually work. All of that wraps back around to the experience of the listener who's there at the concert, and that's what all this is about. This is a man who takes pride in his job even before he's sitting there running the faders.
I know generally what you're doing.
Yeah.
But how you come to some of those conclusions?
You just got to do it. Experiment. So yeah, we're doing all this with the microphone, making pretty pictures, and then it doesn't matter once we start walking. Then it's like, no, that needs to come down. Then it's that judgment. But this gets us close and saves us time for not playing music for an hour and walking around all the zones.
My weak side is for sure the system tech side of this.
It's a lot of people's weak
It's where
side.
I black out.
Yeah,
for sure.
How many did we put on the mains? 4?
3.
Okay, yeah, do 3 on the sides then. Probably kick the shelf out.
Hey, we don't need the shelf, right?
Don't need the shelf on those. Now we're this close to them, and it's gonna be a little thinner out there, but that's okay. So he's just making sure, because we're crossing over the main PA at 60, and making sure the crossover is set to 80 on the side hangs, smaller array. We're gonna have it high pass essentially more than the main PA, so it's not interacting those low frequencies on us out here. The arrays aren't quite in the right physical location to be able to do that stuff well, so we're just gonna take away that interference. Yeah, might be some bleed. 7.6, you said?
There's 7 and 6.
Okay, yeah, let's try that. Gonna start to need a boost. Boost at green, so 6, 5, 4, 3, yeah. Circuit 3 and up. Then we can just shelf the whole thing a little bit. So that 4K filter, move it up to 5K. So that was taking the frequency response of when we got done tuning the main box, the V25s. At our last gig, which felt really good for both of us, what that average looked like compared to what it is today. Right now, today, the wind's blowing. It's kind of hard to tell what the average is doing because the latency to the mics is kind of moving around. But we were a little bit hotter 4 to 5K today than there. So we're just going to take a little, like half dB, maybe a 3/4 dB out really wide EQ just to kind of shape that top end for us.
That was one of the wildest things that he taught me at a show in the past, was how the wind will affect everything that you're doing. And you have to take into account the weather, not just when you're tuning the system, but when it comes to show time. What's the weather going to be doing? How cold will it be? Will it be humid? Is the air blowing? What direction is it blowing? All that affects your high frequencies, because that wind will physically blow your high frequencies away. It's wild.
That looks like 3 milliseconds on the V25s. That looks good. Add the subs. So now we're just taking our contour of the subs and the main PA. I think bring the V25s up in level. Yeah, bring them up. dB or so. Is this a start file or what is this last gig?
This is another start file.
Go up another one. Where are you at right now?
4.
If you guys like this video, be sure to subscribe, because there's a whole lot more. And not just from the technical side, but we talk to tour managers, production managers. There's a whole picture of what makes this thing move and go and be successful. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe, because there's a whole lot more. You want to watch another one? We have this one where we're actually setting up the PA for this very show. Go check it out. Thanks guys. See you in the next one.